It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, my wedding day. But when I saw my mother-in-law slip something into my champagne glass during the reception, everything changed. I switched our glasses without her knowing. 10 minutes later, she collapsed on the dance floor, and the paramedics found enough sedatives in her system to knock out a horse. The truth that came out destroyed my husband's entire family. My name is Jennifer, I'm 30 years old, and this is the story of how my wedding became a crime scene. Let me start from the beginning so you understand how we got here. I met my husband, David, 4 years ago at a coffee shop in Seattle. He was 28, a software engineer, and he had the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. We started talking about the book I was reading, and 3 hours later we were still sitting there, our coffee long gone cold. I knew that day I was going to marry him. David was everything I'd ever wanted. Smart, funny, caring, and he treated me like I was the most important person in the world. We moved in together after 6 months, got engaged after 2 years, and spent the next year planning our wedding. There was only one problem: his mother, Patricia. From the moment David introduced us, Patricia hated me. And I mean hated. She was 58 years old, a former pageant queen who'd married David's father, Robert, when she was 22. Robert owned a successful construction company, and Patricia had spent the last 36 years being the perfect corporate wife. Charity galas, country club memberships, designer clothes, the whole package. I was not what she wanted for her son. I grew up middle class in Ohio. My dad was a high school teacher, my mom was a nurse. I went to state school on scholarships, worked my way through college, and now I'm a social worker making $42,000 a year. I help kids in the foster system find safe homes. It's important work, but it's not glamorous, and it definitely doesn't come with a trust fund. Patricia made it very clear from day one that I wasn't good enough for David. She'd make little comments. "Oh, that's a nice dress, Jennifer. Is it from Target?" Or, "David, are you sure you want to settle down so young? You have so many options." Or my personal favorite, "Jennifer, honey, have you thought about going back to school? Maybe getting a real career?" David always defended me. He'd shut her down, tell her to be respectful, and remind her that he loved me and that was all that mattered. But it wore on me. Every family dinner was a minefield. Every holiday was tense. She criticized everything about me: my job, my clothes, my family, even my cooking. But David insisted she'd come around eventually. He said she was just protective, that she'd warm up once we were married. I wanted to believe him. So we planned our wedding. It was going to be small and elegant, about 150 guests at a beautiful venue overlooking Puget Sound. Nothing too fancy, but special. We'd saved for 2 years to pay for it ourselves because I didn't want to owe Patricia anything. That was a smart decision, as it turned out. The week before the wedding, things got weird. Patricia suddenly became overly involved. She wanted to help with last-minute details. She kept calling me to ask about the seating chart and the menu, and she even offered to help me get ready on the wedding day. This was completely out of character for her. She'd been cold and distant for 4 years, and now suddenly she wanted to be mother of the bride. I was suspicious, but David was thrilled. "See? I told you she'd come around," he said. "She just needed time." I wanted to believe him. I really did. The morning of the wedding, I woke up at my best friend Sarah's apartment. She was my maid of honor, and she'd insisted I stay with her the night before so we could have a girls' night and get ready together. It was perfect. We had mimosas, did our makeup, laughed, and cried happy tears. Patricia called 3 times that morning. She wanted to know what time I was getting to the venue, if I needed help with my dress, if there was anything she could do. It felt wrong, but I pushed the feeling down. Maybe she really was trying. The ceremony was at 4 p.m. It was beautiful. The weather was perfect, sunny and 75 degrees. David cried when he saw me walk down the aisle. We said our vows in front of everyone we loved, and for that moment, everything was perfect. Then came the reception. The venue had transformed the space while we were taking photos. Twinkling lights everywhere, flowers on every table, a live band already warming up. It looked like something out of a magazine. Sarah grabbed my arm and squealed, "Jenny, this is perfect." David and I made our entrance, had our first dance, and then the party officially started. Dinner was served, toasts were made, and everyone was having a wonderful time. I was sitting at the head table with David, laughing at something his best man had said, when I saw Patricia approach our table. She was wearing a cream-colored designer dress and holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Sweetheart," she said to me, her voice dripping with sweetness that I'd never heard before. "I wanted to make a private toast, just you and me. I know we've had our differences, but you're family now, and I want us to start fresh." She handed me one of the champagne glasses and kept the other for herself. I was stunned. David looked like he might cry from happiness. This was what he'd wanted for years, his mother and his wife getting along. "That's so kind of you, Patricia," I said, taking the glass. "I'd really like that." "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. I raised mine to clink with hers, and that's when I saw it. Her hand was shaking slightly, and she had this look in her eyes. Not warmth, not love, something else, something calculating. And just as our glasses were about to touch, I saw her glance down at my glass with an expression I can only describe as satisfaction. Everything in my body screamed that something was wrong. I've worked with troubled kids for 8 years. I've seen manipulators, liars, and people who smile while they hurt you. I've learned to trust my instincts, and every instinct I had was telling me not to drink that champagne. But I couldn't just accuse her. I had no proof. It would ruin the wedding. David would be devastated. Everyone was watching. So I made a split-second decision. "Oh my gosh, wait," I said, laughing. "I'm so sorry, I think I grabbed your glass by mistake. Here, let me—" In the confusion, I smoothly switched our glasses. It happened so fast that I don't think she even registered it. We were both holding champagne flutes. They looked identical, and in the dim romantic lighting of the reception, it was easy to make it seem like an innocent mix-up. "To new beginnings," I said again, holding up what had been her glass. She paused for just a fraction of a second. Then she smiled and said, "To new beginnings." We clinked glasses. I watched her carefully as I brought mine to my lips and took a small sip. The champagne tasted normal. Fine. Nothing unusual. Patricia brought her glass, my original glass, to her lips and drank. A full mouthful. I watched her swallow. She smiled at me, said, "Welcome to the family, Jennifer," and walked away. My heart was pounding. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I'd just watched too many crime shows. Maybe the stress of the wedding was making me imagine things. I turned to David. "Did that seem weird to you?" "What? No, that was amazing. I told you she'd come around." He kissed my cheek and went to talk to his groomsmen. I sat there, holding the champagne glass, telling myself I was being ridiculous. 10 minutes later, Patricia collapsed. I was dancing with my dad when I heard the screaming. The music stopped. People were rushing toward the dance floor. I pushed through the crowd and saw Patricia on the ground convulsing. Her eyes were rolled back, foam coming from her mouth. Robert was on his knees next to her, yelling for someone to call 911. David ran over. "Mom! Mom, what's wrong?" I stood there, frozen, watching the scene unfold. And I knew. I knew what had happened. She'd drunk from my glass. The glass she'd prepared for me. The paramedics arrived within 8 minutes. They stabilized her and loaded her onto a stretcher. She was unconscious, her breathing shallow. Robert rode with her to the hospital. David wanted to go too, but I grabbed his arm. "Let your dad go with her," I said. "We'll follow in a few minutes. Let them take care of her. He was crying, terrified. His mother had just collapsed at our wedding reception. The party was over. Guests were quietly leaving, whispering amongst themselves. Our perfect day had turned into a nightmare. We got to the hospital 30 minutes later. Robert was in the waiting room, looking 10 years older than he had that morning. "They're running tests," he said. "They think it might be her heart or a stroke. They don't know yet." We waited for 2 hours. Finally, a doctor came out. "Mr. Whitmore, your wife is stable, but we need to ask you some questions. The blood work shows extremely high levels of benzodiazepines in her system. That's a class of sedative. Did she take any medication today? Anxiety medication, sleeping pills, anything like that?" Robert looked confused. "No, she doesn't take anything like that. She's very against medication. She won't even take Tylenol." The doctor frowned. "Sir, the levels in her blood are consistent with someone who took multiple doses of a very strong sedative, enough to cause the seizure and loss of consciousness. If she didn't take them voluntarily, we need to contact the police. This could be poisoning." The word hung in the air. Poisoning. David looked at me. Robert looked at me. The doctor looked at me, and I made another decision. "Doctor, can I speak to you privately?" We stepped into a small consultation room. I told him everything. The champagne toast, the look in Patricia's eyes, the way I'd switched our glasses. I knew how it sounded. I knew it seemed impossible. "Do you still have the champagne glass?" he asked. I don't know. Maybe. The venue might have cleaned up already." He called the police. Within an hour, 2 detectives were at the hospital. They went to the venue and found our table hadn't been fully cleared yet. They bagged the champagne glasses as evidence. They tested both glasses. Mine, the one I'd been drinking from after the switch, was clean. The other glass, the one Patricia had drunk from, contained crushed Xanax. A lot of it, enough to seriously harm or potentially kill someone my size. The police questioned me for 3 hours. They questioned David. They questioned Robert. They questioned the catering staff and anyone who'd been near our table. Finally, they questioned Patricia, who'd woken up by then and was claiming she had no idea how drugs got into her system. She insisted she was the victim. Someone must have drugged her drink by accident. But here's the thing. The only fingerprints on the glass with the Xanax were mine and hers. The catering staff confirmed that she'd personally taken 2 champagne glasses from the bar and walked directly to our table. Security footage showed the same thing. And when the police searched her purse, which Robert had brought from the venue, they found a prescription bottle of Xanax prescribed to her friend, Linda Morrison, with half the pills missing. Patricia had stolen her friend's prescription medication, crushed the pills, put them in champagne, and tried to drug me at my own wedding. The question was why. Robert was the one who finally got the truth out of her. He stood in her hospital room and demanded answers. "Patricia, what the hell did you do? Why would you try to hurt Jennifer?" And she broke down. Through tears and rage, she confessed everything. She'd planned to drug me at the wedding, not to kill me, just to make me sick enough that I'd have to leave the reception early. She wanted to humiliate me, to ruin my perfect day, to make sure everyone would remember our wedding as a disaster where the bride got sloppy drunk and had to be carried out. She'd convinced herself this would prove to David that I was unreliable, unstable, not worthy of him. She thought if he saw me lose control on our wedding day, he'd start to question whether he'd made the right choice in marrying me. But it was more than that. Patricia admitted that she'd been sabotaging our relationship from the beginning. She'd tried to set David up with other women. She'd told lies about me to other family members. She'd even tried to convince David that I was cheating on him last year by creating a fake social media profile and sending him anonymous tips. None of it had worked. David loved me and saw through all of it. So she'd escalated to this. Her final attempt to destroy our marriage before it even began. Robert was devastated. David was destroyed. I was vindicated but horrified. Patricia was arrested at the hospital and charged with attempted poisoning and assault. The bail was set at $50,000. Robert refused to pay it. She spent 3 nights in jail before her sister finally bailed her out. David didn't speak to her for 2 months. When he finally did, it was to tell her that she needed professional help and that she was not welcome in our lives until she got it. She refused. She blamed me. She told everyone who would listen that I'd somehow set her up, that I'd switched the glasses to frame her, that I was trying to steal her son. But the evidence didn't lie. Her fingerprints, her friend's stolen medication, the security footage, the confession to Robert. She pled guilty to reduced charges 6 months later. She got 2 years probation, mandatory counseling, and a restraining order that prevents her from contacting me. David's relationship with his mother is permanently damaged. He sees her occasionally, supervised visits with his father present, but it's not the same. It'll never be the same. Robert divorced her 8 months after the wedding. Turns out this wasn't the first time Patricia had done something unhinged. It was just the first time she'd been caught. Robert admitted he'd been making excuses for her behavior for years, but trying to poison your daughter-in-law at her own wedding was the line he couldn't cross. As for me and David, we're stronger than ever. What could have destroyed us actually brought us closer. He knows now that I was right to be cautious around his mother. He knows I saved myself that night. He knows I'm not the problem. She is. We celebrated our first anniversary last month. Just the 2 of us on a beach in Hawaii, far away from all the drama. It was peaceful. Perfect. Sometimes I think about that moment at the reception. If I hadn't noticed the look in her eyes, if I hadn't trusted my instincts, if I'd drunk from that glass, I'd have ended up in the hospital instead of her, maybe worse. And she'd have gotten exactly what she wanted: a ruined wedding, a humiliated bride, and doubt planted in David's mind about whether he'd married the right person. But I did notice. I did trust my instincts, and in 1 split second, I turned the tables on her. Patricia thought she was destroying me. Instead, she destroyed herself. The moral of the story is simple. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And never underestimate a woman who's been underestimated her entire relationship. Patricia thought I was weak. She thought I was easy to manipulate. She thought she could break me. She was wrong. I'm still married to the love of my life. She's alone, divorced, estranged from her son, with a criminal record and a reputation in ruins. Karma doesn't always work instantly, but sometimes it works in 10 minutes. To anyone out there dealing with a toxic mother-in-law or family member who's trying to sabotage your relationship, document everything, trust your gut, and don't be afraid to protect yourself. You don't owe anyone access to your life, especially people who've proven they want to hurt you. And to Patricia, wherever you are, you should have just been nice to me. You should have accepted that your son loved me and moved on, but you couldn't. And now you've lost everything that mattered. I won.